Fight Mike here. Today I'm going to be doing my full card reaction and breakdown to UFC Apex, headlined by Brandon Royval and Manel Kape. It was a decent card. There was some good finishes, especially towards the end of the card. There was some boring parts as well. We will get to all of that, but let's break down the early prelim. We've got Jamie Lynn Horth versus Teresa Blader. This was a decent fight. I was expecting Jamie Lynn Horth to be able to outmuscle and sort of just outdo Teresa Blader in the 29-28 decision, but she was able to get a first round finish here, sort of looking like Michael Morales out there, winging shots. Every time she hit Teresa Blader, it looked like it was doing a decent bit of damage, and each time it was just pushing her back. It wasn't like she was catching her with like the perfect punches, but she was winging really hard shots and sort of just clobbing and clattering the head of Teresa Blader in this fight. And she was able to get a really quick finish on her and completely dominated her. You can see here that Teresa Blader only landed 2 strikes in the entire 2 minutes of the fight. It was a decent one, and I'm impressed and excited to see what Jamie Lynn Horth can do up next. Moving on, we've got Alan Fry Jr. versus Guilherme Pat. This wasn't as fun of a fight, especially since it wasn't a finish, and Alan Fry Jr. was not trying to make this a combat sport, but it was obvious early that Pat was better everywhere. He was just a lot quicker than Alan Fry Jr., and although Alan Fry was on the pressure, Guilherme Pat would be able to slip shots, land and counter back with a lot bigger shots himself, and Alan Fry sort of just looks like a pitter-patter heavyweight, which is not really what you're looking for in the heavyweight division. You need powerful guys. I don't see him doing too well because he took so much damage in this one. The thing is, he was landing probably just as much as Guilherme Pat, especially in round 2, but he just couldn't put any sort of damage on him throughout the entire fight. And although Guilherme Pat looked tired as the rounds went on, it didn't really matter because Alan Fry Jr. wasn't doing anything to really put Guilherme Pat in any sort of danger. And he was sort of just like trying to smudge him up against the cage. It was a really weird game plan out there from Alan Fry Jr. Moving on, we've got... I thought that Alan Fry was going to get this one done as well, so I'm a bit disappointed with that. Moving on, we've got Melissa Croden versus Luana Santos. I went with Luana Santos. I think it was by decision, and she got it done. She looked pretty good early in the fight, especially on the feet. She was landing some good leg kicks, and her jab was sort of popping off well. And she got a pretty good takedown in that first round, losing position, though. I did notice staph on her leg at that moment as well during the first round. She definitely didn't really look like it affected her too much, but maybe it can be used as an excuse for why it was a somewhat close fight between the two of them. Just saw the strike numbers. This was such a low significant strike count. 22 of 74 from Croden and 12 of 24 from Santos. That was sort of like a trend on this card. There was really low strike numbers throughout almost every fight. But Melissa Croden sort of just got dominated positionally when they got to the ground. Luana Santos was able to threaten the head and arm triangle after she got a head and arm throw in the third round there. Croden looked decent in the second round, but she was still taken down in that round and held down for a couple of minutes. So it was just, there was too few moments for Melissa Croden to be able to win that fight, and Luana Santos was sort of just positionally out grappling her throughout this fight. Moving on, we've got Steven Asplund versus Sean Sharaf. This should have got the fight of the night. It was a really fun fight between the two of them. Instantly in round 1, they both started just going at it. Asplund was sort of using his range pretty well. He was using his jab and his straight quite nicely, and he was actually using some quite good combinations. He was throwing some uppercuts in there as well. And Sharaf was landing overhands now and again and landing some good body shots in that first round, but he was getting busted up in moments. And there was a massive cut over the eye of Sean Sharaf. It was sort of like one going straight through the brow there. And it wasn't really bleeding straight into the eyes, but it was enough to really deter Sean Sharaf from like throwing massive amounts of combinations. But he was still landing quite a lot on Asplund, because one issue with him is that he stands really tall, and he was getting caught quite a lot due to that in round 2. And round 2, Sean Sharaf sort of started all right, but Once the cut reopened on his face, Asplund was just landing back at will. He was landing a lot of straight punches on Sean Sharaf, and there was a nut shot in there as well that sort of like let Sean Asplund like regain some sort of composure, and the same for Sean Sharaf. But once they restarted from that, there was so many massive shots from Stephen Asplund, and he was just almost putting away Sean Sharaf at every shot. And credit to Sean Sharaf, he was throwing back with really hard shots, and he was still trying to finish Stephen Asplund, even though he was almost finished himself. But Asplund was able to get a standing TKO finish where Sean Sharaf just looked like there was nothing else for him to give in that one. Moving on, I went with Stephen Asplund by round 1 KO, but he got it done in the second. Moving on, we've got Joanderson Brito versus Isaac Thompson. This was a good performance from Isaac Thompson, but for a debut on short notice against a dangerous guy like Brito. But for Brito, this was really underwhelming. Round 1, Thompson had a really good start. He was out grappling Joanderson Brito after an early body kick and a great takedown. Positionally outdid Brito in that first round. He was landing a couple of shots here and there when he got the chance, as well as some elbows, 12-6. And then round 2, Thompson looked good on the feet early. He was tagging Brito early. But then he just started shooting because I think he got quite uncomfortable in there with Joanderson Brito. Maybe got a little bit tired. But Brito was able to get like a dart attempt off one of the scrambles there. And it was sort of locked in, but Thompson was able to jump around towards the back. But the inexperience showed at 23 years old, and he got shaken off. And Joanderson Brito was able to keep top position for the rest of the round, getting some ground and pound. And I think his own back take in that round. Round 3, on that round, Thompson was aura farming. He looks like he's going to be doing a lot of that in his UFC career, and he started getting tagged in round 3, still landing decently well on the counter. And then for the right, he did some crafty stuff here and there as well. He was using the Kimura grip to not get taken down, but then after a while, it was just stuck in that position, and Joanderson Brito was able to get a takedown there and sort of just smudge for the rest of the round. It was not a very fun round, that third round, but Isaac Thompson, for a close UFC debut, welcome to the UFC. That was a great performance there, and I'm really impressed that he was able to get it done. Moving on, we've got Neil Magny versus Yaroslav Amosov. Neil Magny wasn't able to pull off the crafty vet win that we've been able to see multiple times this year. And Yaroslav Amosov was able to have a very good debut in the UFC. Both of these guys started fast with the striking. Magny was coming forward, punching almost like a droid in Star Wars, and then they were exchanging leg kicks, and Amosov was sort of getting the better of most of the exchanges. Amosov ended up shooting a takedown, and Magny was able to defend the initial one, but once Amosov was able to get that takedown in, it was an instant pin, and he locked up an anaconda choke and was able to get Neil Magny out of there quite easily. And we don't really see this often against Neil Magny. Usually there's quite a lot of struggle getting him out of there, but Yaroslav Amosov looked really good in this fight, and he looked like he's going to be a future contender, and I was very impressed with that performance. Moving on, we've got Bobby Green versus Lance Gibson. This was a decent fight. It was a layup for Bobby Green, and he didn't really handle it as easy as he probably should have, especially seeing the opponent he had out there. But Lance early on was landing some good leg kicks, probably 3 or 4, and then he just decided to do nothing for the rest of the fight. And then Bobby from then on was more active for the rest of the round. He was landing some good left hooks around the guard. He was landing some good teeps to the body as well. And, that probably sounded awful. I really need to sneeze now. But I thought that Bobby was landing quite well in round 2. He was having some good takedown defense as well. I saw people giving Lance Gibson Jr. that round. I have no idea how. He got 2 takedowns and that's it. No damage. And although they weren't super active in those first 2 rounds, it was still quite clear, I think, that it was Bobby Green winning. He was pressing forward the entire time, hands below his waist somehow, and Lance Gibson Jr. couldn't, capitalize on it. And Lance was sort of just on the back foot for the entirety of those 2 rounds. And then round 3, in pretty inactive round again, Bobby was able to outdo Lance Gibson Jr. He ended up getting his own takedown late in the round, And Lawrence Gibson just had a pretty stinky performance. I wouldn't say he's UFC level. I think fighting some of these guys, though, for Bobby Green, some of these unranked guys, they're going to have fun fights for him. Especially if you can get like maybe like a Terrence McKinney versus Bobby Green. Like something like that, and you're going to have a fun fight between them. But pretty stinky performance from both of them, I will say. There was a decent amount of activity from King Green or Bobby Green with 65 significant strikes, but still not like the level of like craziness that I would expect from a Bobby Green fight, to be honest. I think he is slowing down a little bit of a step. Moving on, we've got Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Marcus Buchecha. I went with Marcus Buchecha to get this one done, and he really disappointed me in this. Round 1, he was able to get a takedown early on Kennedy. It was after shooting like an awful one very early into the round. How many takedowns did he shoot in this one? He shot 3 of 13. I think he actually shot... It looks like he shot more than that, or he felt like that at least. But round 1, Buchecha was able to get the takedown on Kennedy. Kennedy was having some success with the striking early on, but Buchecha with his takedown did absolutely no damage and looked like an absolute victim on the feet. And ended up getting like hurt late in the round as well. Round 2, Buchecha early on just looked like he was going to get finished. And then Kennedy eye-poked him. He was cheating. He nut-shotted him, I think, in the first round there. But he was cheating the entire time, so they took a point from Kennedy there. But then Buchecha, upon restart, almost gets finished straight away. Gets dropped to his knees, is able to get the takedown somehow. Kennedy's takedown defense is still pretty schmid. But then Buchecha was able to get mount and slowly get to a position where he was able to get some ground and pound. But then when it came to the position of getting ground and pound, Buchecha just did the stupidest thing you possibly could. And he was throwing them like he had a shotgun that he had to shoot. Like he couldn't throw more than one shot at a time. It was just one little shot, one after the other. And Buchecha was just not doing well at all in that. And he could have got Kennedy and Nzechukwu out of there. You know, in that position that refs are like eager to stop it. And he was just going so slow. And then the last 20 seconds, he went for an armbar that he wouldn't get. So it was a really silly second round there from Buchecha, but still won it though. Round 3, Buchecha instantly shooting takedowns, and they're getting defended because he's not setting them up at all. He has nothing on the feet for Nzechukwu. And then he pulls bottom and gets elbowed brutally, going for I don't even know, it was like a calf slice without the position. It was like he was going for the back and when he was nowhere near there. And Kennedy was just elbowing the thigh from that position and ended up on top on one point. And it was just awful performance from both of them. There was a point in the third round where Buchecha just sprawled out on Kennedy, and it looked so low level. It was a really bad heavyweight fight there. And it was a draw. It was a real draw out there. I don't disagree with it. I wouldn't be unhappy if both of them got cut. But if you want to run it back, I don't want to see that. So maybe make it with a prospect coming up. But somewhat not impressed at all. Moving on, we've got Melquizael Costa versus Morgan Charriere. God, I'm happy I'm picked Melquizael. I was considering a Morgan Charriere pick here, and I didn't pick him to get KO'd. I don't think anyone did, but Melquizael Costa came out here and got a flatline KO with a head kick with Morgan Charriere's guard up. It was such a powerful kick. It was able to finish him with just that, and he's the first one to crack Morgan Charriere's chin with over 30 fights and 30 people trying to do that to Charriere. So it's such an impressive performance. Early on, both sort of tit for tatting at range. There wasn't too many big exchanges. And then, 1 minute 14 into it, Melquizael just lands a beautiful head kick on the guard of Morgan Charriere and just shuts him off out cold. It was a really good finish there from Melquizael Costa. Probably, I would say it would be his most impressive performance to date. It would have to be. Melquizael Costa, he's had a couple of submissions here and there, had a couple of KOs, ground and pound, had a decision here and there. He's had fun fights, but that was a clinical performance. And I never saw him as a dangerous guy on the feet. And obviously, anyone who lands a head kick like that is a dangerous guy on the feet. But Melky is getting better and getting better at a quick rate. I think that's 4 fights in a row for him, 3 this year. And that's a great record for Melquizael there, and I'm very impressed and I'm excited to see what's coming up next for him. It has to be rankings. It really does. Moving on to an absolute stinker. Cesar Almeida versus Cesare Oleksiejczuk. This was a terrible fight, and Cesar Almeida, boy, he's got to be out of the UFC after this one. Round 1 was a very slow start on the feet, and Cesare was able to get an early takedown on him and out-grapple him for the rest of the round with literally absolutely no strikes. If you can see here, the significant strikes is so low. 12 of 20 and 14 of 49. That's awful. Even if the total strikes for Cesare is still 113, that's still 113 rabbit punches. Look at those in round 1. It was such a slow round where Cesare was just holding him in side control and Almeida was just trying to buck out the exact same way. Round 2 was pretty much the same thing, except Cesar reversed him at one point and then was the dumbest thing. Reverses him, tries to stay on top for a bit, and then Cesare kicks him off, and then Cesar Almeida's just sluggishly trying to get back onto the feet like he's not in a cage fight, and then just gets reversed on the ground where he really could have just stood up quicker and he wouldn't have been taken down again. And it was just, and gets smudged for the rest of the round again. 6 strikes from each of them in that round, and then round 3, very much the same thing. Early takedown, and Cesare Oleksiejczuk is able to hold down Cesar Almeida in side control yet again. They get stood up at one point because Cesare elbows Cesar in the balls in side control. I don't know how you can accidentally do that. And then instantly upon restart takes him down again. Really awful fight. I want to see Cesare please just go through the positions. Do more. I need more from that. That was a terrible performance from both of them. And Cesar Almeida, I know you're a kickboxer, but learn how to get up from bottom. That was awful to watch for everyone. Moving on, we've got Giga Chikadze versus Kevin Vallejos. Whoa, I am so excited for Kevin Vallejos here. Round 1, I was kind of worried because Giga was starting really well. His body kicks were landing on Kevin Vallejos, and he was threatening with a bunch of kicks to the head, and Vallejos was doing that Poirier-style defense where it wasn't it was worrying. He was doing the one hand, and I was worried a foot was going to catch around the guard, but he was able to stay pretty safe in that first round. But Giga was coming out hot. He was landing some massive head kicks and landing some big flurries, landed a flying knee to the chest at one point, maybe even to the head there. And then Vallejos looked super inactive, almost looked a little bit standoffish against Giga here, but it looked like he was just avoiding the damage and even went for some smudge himself throughout round 1 there, holding the double underhooks up against the cage. But I think he was just trying to slow down Giga and maybe get a takedown. And Vallejos, straight after there, throws a leg kick and makes shin... I think Giga checks the kick, but it just makes his shin bleed so badly. And I think from then, his shin did hurt pretty bad. And for the rest of that round, Giga was able to still throw that kick, but not really doing too much against Kevin Vallejos there. Look at these strike numbers again. 12 and 22 and 20 and 30 and a round and a half of striking. That's really low, but he was outdoing Vallejos. But then round 2 comes along, and Vallejos early, you can tell he's more aggressive. He knows he wants to step up the pace. He starts landing some good leg kicks. He lands, I think, a couple of right hands over the top. Then lands a right hand, and Giga sort of does that didn't hurt at all. And then Kevin just lands a spinning elbow from hell, dropping Giga Chikadze, folding him backwards. And Kevin lands some nasty follow-up elbows on the follow-up shots. And it was all she wrote. And Giga Chikadze gets slept out cold there. Really good finish for Kevin Vallejos. And I've been saying he is such a good prospect that we have to look out for on the future. He's getting more powerful each fight. We haven't seen that sort of one punch. We've seen it against lower level opponents, but I didn't know he could do it against a guy like Giga Chikadze, who's proven a decent chin even if he's got a small head. And it was a nice finish from Kevin Vallejos there. Moving on to the main event though, we've got Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape. I went with Manel Kape here, and I did say that he was going to hurt Brandon Royval here and do much better than Joshua Van did, because styles make fights. I think Brandon Royval's really good, but against Manel Kape, it's a really tough stylistic matchup for him. And Royval looked really good early. He was landing a lot of kicks to the body, quite similarly to Giga Chikadze, actually. He was probably doing a little bit better, though. Landing some jabs as well, landing some 1-2s, and it looked like early Kape was having some trouble with the range, especially with the kicks and the combinations of Royval. And usually that's not too much of a problem for Kape, and it looks like he was sort of tripping him out a little bit early. But his usual problem, Brandon Royval, it popped up straight again, where he just doesn't have enough sting on his shots. And Kape at one point into the round, I noticed he was like, he realized he's not going to get stung that bad. So he just wades forward, lands a massive right hand, literally like a couple of minutes into the round, and just drops Royval really badly. And landed a couple of follow-up shots, and the ref called it. Do I think there could have been a couple more follow-up shots? Maybe, but I don't hate that they called it off there. It saves Royval. I don't mind him getting more fights. Sorry, I'm literally dripping with sweat. It's so hot here. And I don't have aircon in this room, but Royval, unlucky for him. I do really like Brandon Royval. He's an absolute dog. I think this is the first time he's been finished by strikes. And Manel Kape just coming out with a clinical performance here. They both landed 17 strikes here. Manel Kape at a 71% clip, or no, 73 at the significant strikes. And he looked like the better guy out there. And I think he's always going to be the better striker than Brandon Royval. He's more explosive. He's more powerful. He's got more weapons. He uses his kicks better. He's got more footwork. Brandon Royval, he throws the 1-2, and then it's sort of like his game. And then he's got like kicks around that. He doesn't have the electric countering ability of Manel Kape. I swear he used to. But nowadays, he sort of floats around. He tries to out-volume you, tries to just outpoint you and break you as the fight goes on. But against a guy like Manel Kape or a Joshua Van, they're going to put too much mustard on you and just be putting damage on you throughout the entire fight. And they're not going to give you that time to really pepper and tire them out if you're going to throw like that. Especially since he throws so many straight shots, and when he's throwing the hooks, he's moving backwards. So for a guy who's moving forward with his punches like Manel Kape or a Joshua Van, they're always going to be able to step through and land over the top on Brandon Royval. So it's a bit unlucky for him here, but I think that Manel Kape is a really top-level flyweight. He gave Pantoja a tough fight years ago, and he's had a rough run of injuries. This also tells you that Muhammad Mokaev, also a great fighter, even if that fight was awful. But Manel Kape's a very good guy. Like, I think I would pick him to probably beat Tatsuro Taira, because similarly to Brandon Royval, I said this in the predictions, I think both of them are good counter-grapplers. I think that that's their thing, Manel Kape and Brandon Royval. Like, and I would favor Manel Kape over Tatsuro Taira, and I think him and Joshua Van would be an absolute war of the ages between the two of them, and I wouldn't hate if they gave them that next. But let me know what you think of this in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.